Hey, Joe Mastriano, CPA, over 40 years and thousands of successful IRS tax cases. Today, I say, fire your tax preparer, and boy, I'm serious. I've actually been saying that for a number of years. Why? Let's talk about how people do tax returns. I mean, I've seen it all. I've started my CPA firm in 1980. And what I've discovered is there's a lot of firms that do returns. Let's start at the lower level. Somebody takes a course, they open shop, and they want to do returns. What's their experience? Maybe they worked for a national tax company for a couple of years. They're feeling confident. Those people don't have, obviously, the experience. Then you have people that, I once hired an H&R Block tax manager. She knew a thing or two about returns, but she didn't have the professional judgment involved. Cost me a lot of money having to pay somebody penalties that they got because she missed deadlines. Then you have your local firms. They could be CPA firms or law firms, but they don't respect these lower level returns. They're only a few $100 and they can get, tens of thousands on cases. So they give them to juniors. They don't review them. I mean, I worked for a CPA when I first started in the late 70s. And he would time us. I would take 15, 20 minutes on a return to put items down. He wanted me to go faster. He didn't care. He signed the returns and he acted to all his clients like he was the one that did the return. So a lot of people that still practice like that. You see someone's name on the return, but they're not the one that did it. And that's a bad practice. It's how people have license infractions. And then you have these tax representation companies. They're not even professionally licensed anyway, and yet they'll tell you, oh, we have a CPA on firm, we have attorneys on staff. Yeah, what professional licensed person who's in the business of using that professional license, why would they want to work for an unlicensed company? They're your lower level. I've had attorneys and CPAs as clients, as employees. And some of them used to work for these other companies, and they were not as good as the ones I've hired that have worked for law firms and CPA firms. So chances are your return by far is not getting done with the attention and experience that's necessary, which is why I say fire your tax preparer. A lot of people use family members, neighbors, friends. It's a bad idea. I've gotten in trouble a couple of times with family and friends because I didn't do the tax return exactly the way they wanted it. So I'll tell you right now what the considerations are, and then hire who you feel, meets these qualifications if it's somebody you know and trust. If you don't have anyone in that category, call Stephanie 713-774-4467 and talk to us about having your return done. Number one, you want to pull the wage and income transcript. You want to know what the IRS has on you. How do you do a tax return and know without knowing what they have on you? That can cause an audit. You'll fail the matching program, which leads me to the fact that you should file an extension. Why? Because it takes time for the wage and income transcript to settle. Oh, I can't wait now until we see what happens because W-2s have to be out the door by the end of this month, January. And that's the same time now they have to be to the Social Security Administration. And when there's changes that have to be made, the Social Security Administration is going to get backed up. And if you file early, it's not going to match what they have on record. And pop, you're going to get that letter that it needs to be adjusted. I've done this long enough I can see things as they're going to happen ahead of time. I wish I was that good in stock picking. I'd be a billionaire by now. But in this profession, I know I could see what's coming down the pike. I talk to revenue officers almost daily, at least IRS employees almost daily. Some of them are in audit or appeals or some other department. So it's very critical that your tax preparer tell you how to defend the items. We attach statements with our returns that explain that the taxpayer understands the code and the regs and has the required documentation for evidence, and that helps fend off an audit. I've got my 4-part checklist that to this day, when we used it, I don't know one person who was audited. That's how tight and strong it is. I developed that, 10 to 15 years ago. I've had my CPA firm since 1980. I've seen a lot. And what happens is people don't know how to support their deductions. I take on audit representation cases, and we're asking people to get their backup, and it's like they heard it for the first time. I had a tax preparation company. We've represented a couple of dozen or more tax preparation companies before the IRS. One of them had a much bigger practice than me and didn't realize the level of receipts he should have kept on his return, got in big trouble for it also. So I'm going to end this video. Don't want to ramble on, but I've also seen so many mistakes on returns, and tax rules have become very complicated. Not so much the law and all of that. Most people's returns don't involve a lot of advanced laws, but the preparer has extra documentation and questions that they have to ask the taxpayer. And if you e-file, you have to put in the payer's name and address and ID number on W-2s and 1099s, and things have to match or it'll get kicked out. So many firms hire tax preparers that are really clerical type people, and they key it in, they get all that stuff right, but they know nothing of taxes. And you get your return and you go, oh, well, I got a $5,000 refund and I thought I might owe, so good job. Then 3 months later, you get audited and you don't have the receipts, and now you have a $10,000 bill plus interest and penalties, so maybe it's $13,000. And people will hop from preparer to preparer to blame the preparer. I say take personal responsibility. I've seen videos out there now talking about, well, you had to pay taxes because your preparer made a lot of mistakes on the return, and so let me help you. Well, why? So that person can make mistakes too? Mistakes can be fixed. Obviously, you don't want someone that makes mistakes, but you don't want someone that's going to cause you an audit and get you in trouble. The tax package will calculate things, and then you have to go back and look and see if the numbers are correct. Most all the people who do taxes that I've represented before the IRS don't do that. They enter it in, they clear the alerts, and the alerts from the tax package says everything's okay, and they kick out the return and they give it to you, and you're happy and they're happy, and you sign off and they sign their preparer stuff, all these extra requirements, and then bam, they get audited. And then the taxpayer is like, I didn't know I needed that. How come I gave you like $4,000 worth of contributions, but my return says 14,000 for contributions? A lot of preparers just want to make their clients happy with big refunds, and I try to warn everybody: you want your return to be done properly. You don't want to pay zero taxes. I can make everybody pay zero taxes, but some of you will get caught and then I'll lose my license. It's no way to run a responsible business. You want to gamble? Buy some, I can give you some stocks to buy. That's a better gamble. You gamble with the IRS and they audit you. They're going to audit the year before and the year after, and you'll get substantial understatement penalties on top of late payment penalties and interest. And they'll audit some other area that you couldn't protect. And suddenly you have a $20,000 bill and you only made $120,000 in the first place, and then after taxes and Social Security, your bill is like a third or a quarter of the total money you made that year, all because you didn't take the responsibility to go to someone who's going to be responsible about your return. So 95% of you, fire your tax preparer and go to somebody who has the knowledge and experience to help you avoid an audit and to educate you on making sure you have what you need to defend the items on the return. Or just call Stephanie, 713-774-4467. We'll take care of you. We'll educate you. And you won't have these problems. Thank you.